What's up, no, Peter McKinnon, shout out.
My friend Joel, check him out.
Oh yeah, Joel does that too. Yeah.
Yeah, JOAO does things. Check him out on Instagram.
Yeah.
A cool guy. But he does that too.
He does that too.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Sleightly More Podcast. I am one half of your host, James Patrick Cruz.
And I'm the other half of the single one host, Chris Michael.
Oh, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, sorry.
No, I like it.
It's like we're conjoined twins that have been separated, obviously.
That's why you can't see beneath the table. That's why we're always sitting close to each other during this.
So we wanted to acknowledge that sometimes these podcasts are kind of all over the place. This one today is more than likely not going to be because Chris has a very deep understanding of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Last night was a long night. Last night was a very fun night, but also a very long night.
Okay.
Also, if you're ever in Alexandria, Don
Taco.
Amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Amazing place.
Amazing,
if you're
yeah.
ever in Alexandria.
Man, it's called the Cluck. It's like a fried chicken taco with pico de gallo, shredded lettuce, and this, I don't even know what type of sauce.
Crema?
Yeah, but no, there was something else.
Oh, okay, all right.
Some sort of ale. It's at House Aioli.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Ooh.
So good. Tequila, lots of tequilas, obviously. They were amazing.
Yeah, it was actually I didn't know much about tequila, just like whatever's handed to me. This was, I actually learned a lot and got to try some, and the bartender was a pretty cool dude. He didn't talk much, which, Shane was a bartender, so it's something that he's like.
I immediately like.
Yeah, he's like, oh, come on, this isn't a good bartender. But I like the guy, and I like his outfit. It was Halloween themed, so he had horns on. Pretty cool.
Yeah, all right. So tell them what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, today we are talking about how to approach people in walk-around situations. And hey, I am not going to be doing the same typical, this looks like the fun table. Mind if I show you a magic trick? Or, hey guys, I'm the professional interrupter today. How are you?
Really? That's an opener?
None of that. I'm going to tell you how to do it on a way that gets people smiling, laughing, and makes them your best friend before you even approach to do a magic trick.
Chris, I will tell you, this is one of the things, we've been together 2 weeks now. Mm-hmm. This is one of the things that I think Chris is probably the best at that I have seen. It's just, meaning the entire show, like you put on an incredible show, but approaching people, because I know as a performer myself, as a magician myself, that I don't actually like doing walk around only for that reason.
Yeah.
Because
a lot of guys.
Whenever a corporate company reaches out to me and they're like, hey, can you do walk around? I'm like, how about, what's best actually, instead of just interrupting people, is just set up a table on one side and just invite people over to the table. That's really me just getting around the fact that I don't like walking up to people.
Well, let's be honest here too. If that's something you're not comfortable with, telling a client, hey, here's what would be better, is the truth, because for you that would be better because you're more comfortable. So it's not like you're just wiggling your way into doing something, into doing less work. It's just, hey, what are you comfortable with? But I will say that there's so many benefits to strolling magic.
There is. I've seen them firsthand now.
Yeah, and one thing that's really cool about it is when people hear that there's a magician at these events, something we run into all the time is people kind of go, oh, a magician? Or like, what? You hired a magician? That's weird. And some of those people are the same people who would never even think to approach that table that you've set up that. But with walk around magic, not that they don't have a choice, but they're going to have a better experience with it because you come up to them and take those barriers down right away. And we're talking about those ways, how to break those barriers down actually right now.
Chris has probably a few of the best ways that I've ever seen about how to approach a table. And what's interesting is, what I just thought of?
What's that?
You actually approach a table the same way you approach phone calls. Meaning that on phone calls, on the initial phone calls to potential clients, you actually don't talk about what you do.
Yeah.
I literally just thought about that just now. So it's very interesting
Careful with this.
For instance, when you take initial phone calls, it's all about the event and the client, and you literally do not tell them that you're a magician or that you're going to offer. You don't offer services
I don't talk about myself.
at all.
Yeah.
You don't talk price. It's the exact same thing that you do in your walk-around situation to open up for the magic later on. So tell people a few of the ways that you open up without doing magic.
So I'm going to start by saying this. This is what works for me, and obviously I think it will work for a lot of you.
Yeah.
But the style that I have, which is super friendly, open, high energy. This is what works for me. I think that you can take these tips and tweak them for your character, but I know that this isn't going to work for everybody. Not everybody's as outgoing and charismatic, I think, as another, and maybe that's your character. Maybe that's something that you just haven't become comfortable with yet, or maybe that you never even want to be comfortable with because you're comfortable with how you are. It's totally cool, but let me tell you what works for me. A few of the things that I like to do, let's get with like getting to the gig. I'm looking for a couple things right off the bat. I'm looking for who matches my energy. Who's a guy that is already like me, like high energy, excited, he smiles a lot, super friendly, because these are the guys who are people pleasers, right? And yes, they want to please even the entertainment. What's a good way to do that? Let the entertainment engage you in conversation. I look for those guys because they're easy ins and also tend to have big crowds around them, right? Because people go for him because you get to an event, it's awkward, who do I go to talk to? Oh, here's a guy who's super easy to talk to, and he would carry the conversation for me. They go over to him, and now he's got this crowd of people, they're saying, making visiting conversation, hi, hello, how's it going? I try to get in there and just pass a compliment along, just open with a compliment, just like, hey man, I noticed you got a super radiant smile, and I normally do this not even while I'm coming into the group. Yeah, sorry, I'm talking fast. I've revved my motor. So I get to the gig, I find the charismatic guy, and I just try to walk past, like either to get a napkin or get a water or just to check out the space. And as I'm walking, without breaking my pattern, I'll just look and be like, oh, hey man, you got a super radiant smile. And he goes, thank you. And I keep walking. I don't stop because I don't want them to feel that I have any ulterior motives.
Yeah.
That's one way to do it. And then now I have an in to come back to that just a little bit later. I don't want to interrupt that whole group, especially in the very beginning. For me, that feels awkward.
Yeah.
But if I can just catch them in an off moment, just be like, hey man, super radiant smile, or oh dude, love the shoes. Yeah. And I just keep walking. He just thinks it's a genuine compliment. Like, oh, he just wanted to make me feel good. Awesome.
Yeah.
Now later on, in a few minutes, when I come up to him, hey, sorry about that walking by. I just had to get a water, or get a napkin. I'm Chris, by the way. What's your name? And I try to get everybody's name in the circle, and I'll ask them a question about themselves. I'll say like, hey, just out of curiosity here, I want to know who's got the best imagination in this circle, and they might even know why you're asking that. But it's funny because they'll make a joke about somebody, or they'll all point to one person, or they'll kind of argue about it. No, I have a better imagination. And then you're getting that conversation going and say, oh, you do have a good imagination? Are you willing to test it? And they'll say, sure, why? What do you got? Well, I'm actually a magician. They brought me out today. I want to see if we can test out your imagination. Oh yeah, cool. And now everybody's on board because you made it about them. So the pattern is compliment, question, observation. My observation is typically, oh my gosh, that was a unanimous decision. You must have a really good imagination. You know what? Maybe that's not even a good thing. Like things like that.
So you're validating them from the get-go. You're validating them before you even step into the group, and then when you get into the group, you're validating them because you're saying they have it. You're asking who has the greatest imagination, and then once they decide on someone, then you're validating that person, which other people then latch onto because they're like, oh, this guy's not just trying to come in and perform. He's actually a genuinely nice guy, and validating everybody that's there. So literally, once again, no magic whatsoever from the beginning. Because one of the hardest things when you and you all that perform walk around know this. One of the hardest things about walking up to a group is you start to perform and they go, "Oh, you're the magician." Yeah, because they have no idea. Because now it's like an abrupt. It's like an abrupt beginning. You're starting almost at a loss before you even get going.
And one thing I noticed that I'm really careful of is I don't want to say observations that seem like I could say it to any group, right? So for instance, for me, I the whole oh, this is a fun group. That is a line I sort of use. I'll usually walk into a group and say, oh man, this is the most energetic group in here. And instead of just them thinking I say it to every group, I say, no, seriously, look around. Do you see all these other groups? And then look at you guys, and then they look at them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we are kind of fun like that." Yeah. I mean, I thought it'd be cool for me to come over here and do some magic for you guys. They actually brought me out from, and wherever you want to say, I consult for magicians on America's Got Talent. To say, hey, they brought me out from America's Got Talent to do some magic for you, or you can say, hey, they brought me out from corporate to just entertain you guys, to do something unique and entertaining. And they're like, oh, cool, what is it?
Yeah.
And then you can get into that way. A couple of things on this tip that I wanna open up is, I usually start with a big group in the beginning of the gig. The reason why
I want you to go into next,
is that big group is likely to disperse. Usually big groups in the beginning don't stick together. Later on in the evening or the event, if it's in the afternoon, the bigger groups do tend to stick together a little bit tighter. In the beginning, They're just looking for anybody to talk to. So you get in there, you just say, hey, what's up, guys? And you don't even have to perform magic in the first hit if you don't want to. You can walk up and say, hey, man, I love your shoes. Sorry for interrupting, guys. I don't want to interrupt too much. I just want you to know that they brought me out to do some awesome things for you guys. Just please don't leave without me please don't leave without letting me show you something later on. And they're usually
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, man, cool. And you're like, awesome. Well, I'll come back in a few minutes, but until then, let me know what you need.
Yeah, and then you have an automatic in.
Yeah.
Now when you step up, because one of the biggest issues then is them stepping once, like I just said, you stepping up and they having no idea who you are. So now 20 minutes later, when you come back to that group, now they go, oh yeah, he told me he does that. He's the magician and he was brought out to do magic for us, and he was coming back to our group.
Yeah.
So now they already know.
Now they already know.
Yeah.
They
So
already
yeah.
stop when you get there because it's a courtesy thing. Here's a question for you guys. Have you ever told your friends, they're like, hey man, let's get dinner Tuesday night. And you're like, oh yeah, cool, let's do that. And then Tuesday night comes around and you're like, oh crap, I can't get dinner, or I don't want to get dinner, and but I already said yes, so yeah, let's go get dinner. And then you go out and it ends up being an amazing time. Same thing here. You're saying, hey, I want to show you something later. And they say, yeah, cool, yeah, come back and show us something later. And then you come back later and they're like, oh yeah, we did say you'd come back. Okay, cool, show us what you got.
Yeah.
And hey, they may not be on board by then, but after your first trick, you've won them over and they're like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is awesome. And I'm a real person with them. I don't care about being taken seriously. That's something a lot of magicians talk about. I don't care about coming across as a super professional. I do care about coming across as a professional magician, but I don't, I want to be a real person. Like, people are usually sizing you up to see like, hey, is this a guy that I value as a person? Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people think they're looking at you to be like, is this guy a good entertainer? Sort of, but like the way that I even use these terms, like, whoa, dude, nice shoes, I love those, and I keep walking, or like,
Yeah.
dang, dude, you got a radiant smile. Like, these are the things that I'm saying, and like maybe you don't say, dang, dude, but like, whoa, sir, dang, those shoes, or whatever. I don't know, whatever you put it in your own language, but
You know a great way to practice this actually? And I did this a long time ago. Man, it's hard, especially for introverted people, which I am, which is crazy that I'm a performer, but I'm also very introverted.
Actually, a lot of
I am
performers are.
selectively extroverted.
yeah, that's what a lot of performers
So do it in your everyday life.
Yeah.
Not even at a gig. You know one of the best ways to get good at doing that? It's just in your everyday life. When
Yeah.
you walk, and I see you do this.
Yeah,
in your
I do it all
everyday
the
life.
time, yeah.
When you walk by people, throw out compliments.
Yeah.
Literally throw out compliments with no expectation of getting anything
And then you
back.
get confident with it. I always forget that it's something people aren't comfortable with. I always forget people
Yeah.
get nervous to do that. I
Yeah.
do it so often, even at a cash register, like coming up and being like, wow, Miss Sydney, I love your hair. It's
Yeah.
like, is it recent? Just people love to talk about themselves. Get
Yeah,
an
you almost got
opportunity to do
married at a Dunkin' Donuts in North Carolina the
Miss
other
Lisa,
week.
yes, Miss Lisa. And
In
also,
Texas. Yeah, another story.
names are something I'm really strong with. It's something I encourage you to practice with.
Yeah.
Man, when I go up to a group and I say, hey guys, just can I get your names? Cool. Hey, I don't want to interrupt too much. Looks like what Kevin's saying is super important. But hey, I want to come back later and show you something awesome. They paid for me to be here, so don't miss it. And they're like, okay, cool. Then I can come back and later on, when you've remembered their names,
It's got like a cold chill wind out here, man.
I think that's the actual wind. That's what
Yeah.
you're feeling.
Oof.
When I come up to them and I remember their names and like, what's up, Kevin? Hey, Sally. You guys told me I can come back and do something for you. Are you ready? And they'll be usually like, yeah, we're ready. And then people like to mirror people that they enjoy.
Yeah.
If you say their names, there's a lot better of a chance that they'll like you, and then they're more likely to mirror you and mirror your energy.
Yeah.
So I know that we're focusing on mainly the approach. I'm going to touch on that a lot more, but I do want you to know that eventually I also want to talk about some ways to like get really awesome energy out of crowds when you are performing rock around, because nothing is more life-sucking than doing a couple coin tricks or card tricks and then being like, wow,
Yeah.
that was cool.
Yeah.
And you're like,
Yeah.
all right, next table.
Good job, buddy. All right.
Yeah, that to me that sucks my soul. I want them to be laughing and yelling, and then also that makes you look incredibly good to your bookers when they're walking out of the door and they're going into the area you're performing, and people are literally screaming, pulling their phones, going, "What?" There is actual ways that you can get people to do that, psychological tricks, and we'll talk about that. And maybe do you want to go into that in this one? Or you want to do a separate episode?
No, we could do that on this one.
Yeah.
But let's start at the very beginning because I have watched you do this a lot of times now. So when you get to the event,
Yeah.
in a walk around event, one of the first things I notice you do is you survey the event
Uh-huh.
to see who's already in groups,
Yep.
and out of those people that are already in groups, who are the most outgoing
Yeah,
that
I
are
love
within
that.
those groups. Because I
Yeah.
remember one of the weddings that you did last weekend up in Cambridge, Maryland.
You'll see that in episode
yeah,
2 of Beyond the Magic.
That's
You'll
right,
actually
episode
watch-
2. Yeah. You said if you go back to watch that episode, you'll see Chris say, "Hey, listen, you see the table that's across, over my right shoulder? They're already super engaged, so that's where we're going to go first, because that table is more than likely more inviting than someone who's sitting down and not really saying anything."
Definitely.
So yeah, because you mentioned the name things, I want to go back to that really
Hold on.
quickly.
I just want to speak to one point. What he said about the starting with a group that's energetic has another benefit. If you get those people laughing, cheering, and clapping, well, now everybody's interested, right? You're in. People are like, whoa, when is he going to do that for us?
Yeah.
So now you also have an in with the other groups. That's a little bit difficult in the beginning of the event, only because people are still filtering in. Not everybody's going to be there. So you still got to do that several times, but it does help for the people who are already there when they see a big group cheering, laughing, and clapping, especially when it's the charismatic guys that they tend to look up to a bit more. They go, oh, if they had a good time, we'll have a good time.
Also, too, when that big group disperses throughout the event, when you then engage in another group that one of those people is now in, they then typically will validate you to that group.
Yep.
Like, oh, this guy's like, wait till you see,
I
like,
love
this guy's
that.
amazing.
Yeah.
So that's also another benefit of approaching that big charismatic group in the beginning.
Yeah, when the group disperses, which it always does usually throughout the event, like you'll see this person now joins this group, or hey, my friends haven't got here yet, so I was temporarily in this group, now I'm with my real group.
Yeah.
You can go up and be like, oh, John, you're with new people now, man. Hey, you guys didn't get to see what I did, right?
That's
John, it was
exactly
crazy.
what I was getting ready to say.
Yeah, and you can even ask him like, "Oh, John, it was crazy, wasn't it?" And then he feels like, "Oh, they did miss out. Like, you guys missed out. It was wild."
Yeah. Also, the other part of that is you can say, "All right, John, out of this group, remember the, asking who's the most imaginative." You can even address now that person saying, "All right, John, you know this group. Who out of this group is?" So now you're validating him. Because you're putting him in charge of, validating
that is a
the
great
group.
tip.
To
The other thing that I love is that you don't have to ask who's the most imaginative. That's not a blanket statement I ask every group. That's just a lead into one of my tricks.
Right.
Because for imagination coins,
Yeah.
do the same thing for whatever trick you are. Like, who here is the card shark? You know what I mean? Or like, hey, who here's the most protective of their stuff? Who's the most like, hey, that's mine, don't touch it. Little things like this are like, say like, who here do you think is like the most flexible? And they're like, what? Like, I don't know. And I'm like, all right, cool. Let's come stretch with me. Like, that's another weird thing I do is like, I'll come up to people and break barriers. I want to break patterns. I don't want to do the typical handshake. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Chris. I literally like, Lisa, grab my leg, pull my leg. You're like, I do like crazy stuff. Like, come on, help me stretch, and make them stretch with me. And I do things that break down these barriers to let them know like, okay, it's okay for us to show our true selves, because people are just as worried about how you're perceiving them as they are perceiving you. So that's what we forget a lot of the time is they are also doing a performance for you, right?
Yeah.
It's a performance of being a good guest.
Yeah.
So when I let them know, hey, I'm a little bit weird and out there too, so you can be, it really helps.
Yeah. What else do you have on just when you very first get to the event? Also, you have, I don't know if you want to talk about this at all, but you have your case that you set up.
Yeah.
Is there any tips that you have on, or is there like a proper placement to set that up? I mean, I know a lot of times it's based on
just
where the
space.
room is in the space, but what else do you have as far as like right when you get there? Here's what I would say. I think I'm going to answer my own question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I
know you know the answer to it.
Yeah, one of the best things, I was going to ask the question, what do you do in the very beginning other than just survey? You actually kind of take like a stroll around
I walk
through
around.
everybody, and you literally just introduce yourself.
Or just
"Hey, how you
toss
doing?"
compliments.
Like, toss compliments out there. So you're almost setting up the actual beginning of walking around, Does that make sense?
And I try to be super self-aware. People will point out, because I tend to wear a vest, right? And they're like, oh, you must be the magician. And I'll like just acknowledge, like, oh, man, do I sound that much like a magician? That sucks. Like, like things like that, like just to let them know, like, hey, I am not my job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like, oh yeah, you probably think I'm a magician because of the vest. Like, who wears a vest in the 21st century? Pretty lame, huh? like things like that, where they're like, oh, this guy looks at him the same way that I look at him. Like, okay, he's just a person who happens to be a magician. Not here's a magician who's barely a person, which is unfortunately a common thing, right?
Yeah.
So I really try to break those down early. I also then try to, when you first get to the gig, I do a survey, and usually under the guise of looking for the person who hired me. And I'll ask them, like, hey, is there anybody in this group that you think like was super excited when they found out I was coming out? Like, who here is like just super into magic, or anybody that you want to like pick on a little bit? Like, nothing crazy, just like slight ribbing or something. Like, who can take it? And they'll usually give you a few names, and now that's another in, because connections are everything. So like, hey, John. Oh, you're John? Oh, that's crazy, because Sally actually mentioned your name. She said that you'd be fun and willing to try something. You want to do it right now? And like, what? Wait, now he's curious. He's like, Sally talked about me? What'd she say? Like,
Yeah.
you could play off of that stuff. So little things like that definitely help a lot. Just try not to take yourself too seriously. Approach with good energy, man. Vibes are everything. You know, if you give off good vibes and good energy, not that I believe in all that stuff, but like genuinely, like just approach with good intentions. And also, don't worry about doing things that aren't magic specific. I always ask groups like, hey guys, if you enjoyed it, let them know up there that I did a good job. And listen, if you need anything, even if it's not magic related, let me know and I can help you. And truthfully, I probably can't help you, but I can find somebody who will, and I'll pretend to help. And they'll be like, oh yeah, cool. You know, just little things like that to like let them know, hey, I'll service you. And also, I offer to buy people drinks sometimes. You'll notice, like, hey, you know, if you guys like, usually the company gives them one drink ticket, and then they're on their own. Like, hey, yeah, man, if you want me to buy you a drink or anything, let me know. I'm happy to do that.
You know, one of the things I've seen you do is at a table, you say, hey, listen, I'm getting ready to go grab a water. Does anybody need anything?
Yeah, I do it all the time. And
So,
I generally,
yeah.
also, what does it matter if I spend, you know, let's say a drink is $7 at this event, which usually they're a little bit lower on these private events, right? So let's say a drink is $7. Why would I not spend $7 to have that client be like, whoa, that dude just bought me a drink and like gave me a good time and like, and then when I tell him later on, hey, go tell Sally you enjoyed it, he'll be like, man, that guy was cool. He bought me a drink.
Yeah.
And like now Sally feels like, oh, he's not just out here looking out for himself. He's
Yeah.
looking out for my guests. Like
Yeah.
that's super cool. And that's the best $7 you've ever spent. Similarly, like a lot of the time also, let me just say this, you probably won't need to pay for that drink. If you come up and like they know you're the performer and you're killing it, you do a drink for the bartender, you say, hey, I was doing a magic trick and you know, as part of the trick, I told him I'd get him a drink. Like, is it cool? Can I get like a gin and tonic, which is what he likes? And normally the bartender will just give it to you, or the person who like ran the event will cover it for you. But don't be afraid to spend your own money. Like don't do it at every table, obviously, and most people won't even take you up on it.
Yeah.
Just the idea of offering is really cool for them. But don't be afraid of that. $7 out of it, I don't even know what you charge. Even if you charge, I hope nobody's really charging $200 for walk around, but if you're charging $200 for walk around, $7 out of that doesn't hurt you too badly.
Yeah. I think this goes right into one of the things that we have been talking about a lot and asking a lot of performers about is setting up the expectation of you as a magician when you get to the event, and even before the event. I know you all that perform out there know what we're talking about. When you get to the event and they're like, oh, a magician's here? Like, what does he do? Like 4-year-old birthday party? He's super cheesy and like has a squirt. I can't tell you, when I go to events, I wear a suit jacket that normally has like a lapel flower. And they're like, what does that squirt out at you? I'm like, no, it squirts sulfuric acid. If you just stand in front of me, that'll be no. So how do you set the expectation? I think another episode we're going to get into, how do you set that expectation before you even get to the event?
We'll talk
real
about
quickly,
that
we can briefly, just to throw it out there so you can think about it, is sending out promo materials before you get to the event and asking the client to kind of disperse that to the people that are going to be at the event. That way, when you get to the event, people already have seen you, hopefully, and have an expectation to go, this guy isn't your typical magician that they think about. The other part of that, too, that I really wanted to talk here about is how do you set that expectation once you're at the event? Well,
that's easy.
One of the best ways is exactly what we just talked about, which is throwing out compliments, like,
and being a genuine person,
and being genuine,
and have conversations. You don't have to be doing magic the whole time. People think that, oh gosh, the client's gonna look over, I'm not doing tricks. What? You're talking to their guests, keeping them happy. Like yesterday, at a strolling gig at a brewery, I sat down at a table with their family and literally had a long conversation with them about, hey, where are you guys from, and like what their relationships were. And then other family was coming up and they were hugging them and saying like, oh, what's up, Louie? And I was like, oh, hey, Louie, man, good to meet you. And like, I literally was there having a conversation. Louie didn't even know I was a magician, and I would say like, you know, at least 5 to 10 minutes of that. And then like the grandfather goes, all right, man, what you got? And I was like, what? I was like, oh, I gotta do magic now? Like,
he literally asked you to do it.
Yeah, and then I literally said to him, I was like, oh, come on, now I gotta do magic, like as a joke. And he's like, yeah, man. And so and then I brought him a trick, and they were blown away, and they also respect me as a person. And then also this takes away a little bit of the risk of screwing up a trick. Like now if you mess up, so what? You asked me, you know what I mean?
They're now friends.
Yeah.
They're not clients anymore. They're not friends. The same thing, the house party we were at last night.
They literally asked us to spend the night.
They asked us to spend the night and like come back and party with them, and obviously we didn't. We came back here, but yeah, so it got like we were talking to them, engaging to them, talking about, we're talking to them about the camera stuff and like places we've been and like the series and probably not half the time, but close to half the time is just spent like hanging out and getting to know them, which is, I guarantee you, and I know this from experience, I remember one of the very first best event that I ever did was an event that I showed up and I hung out with the guys beforehand, and we just kind of,
Yep, that will do it.
shop talk and like hanging around and having a good time. By the time I actually started the 45-minute show, it was like we were old friends hanging out, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to perform for you guys now.
Yeah.
So super, the stress is taken down to zero because of that. So you can facilitate that same kind of environment in a walk-around situation just by being genuinely interested in people.
Also, I'm not crossing my arms because it's cold and windy out here. I'm crossing my arms because Shane puts me off a little bit. So.
Because I put you off?
I'm
What does that mean?
No, I meant like a disturbed by, but
Oh.
I actually am just very cold.
It actually it felt great out here earlier.
Yeah,
Now
then we've
it's
been out
like
here for a while.
Cold
But-
chill.
So a couple things too on what you just said. I want to just mention this. A lot of lower paying gigs are way more anal about whether or not you're performing magic all the time or not. Like,
Yeah.
if you're getting paid $300, they're gonna be over your shoulder like, why are you not doing magic? Why? But when you get paid like literally $2,000 or $1,000 to do walk around for an hour, it's so funny how those people like genuinely are always like, hey man, why don't you sit and eat with us? Or like,
Yeah.
hey, go grab yourself a drink. Like, or like you'll do magic and they'll be like, all right man, take a break. Like,
Yeah.
they know you're valuable, and so literally you as a person alone are valuable. So that conversation you're being able to have with people, are like, oh, they literally think, no way, it's so cool that they get to talk to this guy. They're like,
Yeah.
oh man, they're getting to talk to him. Wow, that's cool. But if you charge $300, you're not important. Like, you don't have to like, not that you're not important, but this is the client. They're like, he's just any magician. Like, all right, stop talking to them. Like, what do you know? Do magic.
Yeah.
But if you're charging $1,500, they're like, whoa, they get to talk to this guy? Like,
Yeah.
it's funny because when I charge $300 and offer people, like, when I was charging $300, I'd be like, yeah, if anybody wants to take pictures or video after the show with me or do any questions and answer, I'm happy to do that. Never once did they ask me to do that. But now that I start charging $1,500, they're always like, oh my gosh, you would do that? Thank you so much. How much extra does that cost? I'm like, nothing. They're like, what?
Yeah.
It's what you charge is honestly sort of the way you're perceived. And another thing that happens if you charge more is now the client wants to build you up, right? They're like, oh man, we really went all out on this magician. Like we got a big time guy to come in here and do some awesome stuff for you guys. And like
Yeah.
they're saying this before the event even starts. Like they're saying this on Tuesday, the event's on Friday. So people already have expectations that like, oh man, Megan told us about you. Like you're like, apparently you're really good. And you're like,
Yeah.
then you just like I always make humor of it. I'm like, oh, well, you're wrong. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I'm not good. So get ready.
I think that goes. I mean, I think what to charge could be its own podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I think the way that perfectly ties into this is, it is my own personal opinion that if you charge $300 for an event, you automatically walk in there stressed out because you're like, man, now you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah.
No wonder you're stressed out walking up to tables because you're like, man, I'm only making $300. I really got to work hard for this.
Yeah.
It's very interesting that when you come in, you charge $1,500 for an hour. And you go in there, you just feel better, and
By the
you're
way,
more relaxed.
let's acknowledge that $1,500 is small time money for
Yeah,
walk
that's-
around
yeah,
gigs.
that's not-
that is small time money, and I understand
Yeah.
that I'm not at all in the big leagues right now. Like maybe like we're talking about raising my rates now.
Yeah.
Maybe I will charge, and I'm not even saying I charge for it, but this
That's
by
just
the time
we're just throwing the number out.
yeah, by
there.
the time
Yeah.
you watch this, it could be far more, but
Yeah.
that's still small time. I got friends who make $22,000 for
Yeah.
an hour of strolling, and
Yeah.
a good buddy of both of ours
Yeah.
that started in the same magic shop as us.
Yeah.
And even those clients are happy to pay him. And I'll tell you what, he's probably doing 1 to 3 tricks max at that event.
I want to talk about. I'm glad you brought that up because I want to talk about this. Don't try to do. One of the misconceptions, and this is specifically for magicians, one of the misconceptions for doing walk around is you need to bring like 20 different effects to do and stay with the table for 20 minutes and perform for the entire 20 minutes. That couldn't be further from the truth.
And people think sometimes when they get tipped, they're doing a good job. Sometimes you're getting tipped because they want you to leave.
Yeah.
That's-
All right, good job, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So take 3 to 4 tricks that you know inside and out, and then just do those. There's ways that you can draw those. Talk to people. Don't feel like Chris said, don't feel like you need to constantly be performing the entire time. Like, take time to engage with people. here's
I think I do
proof in
one
the
trick per group, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think I do like one trick
Yeah.
per group, and I could do more if they want me to do more. But
Yeah.
it's like, hey, we've had such a good time in that one trick. I don't want to kill it. Like, hey, I'm gonna leave as a rock star. Like,
Yeah.
boom, I just exploded this
Yeah.
group, and then like, all right, well, cool.
So proof in the pudding, and I don't think you're gonna mind me saying this, but
Yeah, I know.
one of the walk around performances, of course we're filming, and you do the same kind of handful of tricks all the time. I'm like, hey man, I need you to kind of switch it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And during that after midway through, you're like, I got to go back to what I'm used to doing.
I was
because
bombing, man.
Yeah, it was like you were overthinking it. Like, so listen, just do what you're comfortable with, and. I don't know where I was going with that. Yeah,
No,
just
yeah, yeah.
just do what you're comfortable with, and that way it'll set yourself up for success and not failure when you're stepping into these groups, because you don't have to think about the effects
That's exactly
anymore.
what it was for me. Was that I was
Yeah.
coming up thinking like, I'm like, crap, I don't remember where I put this card. Is it on top of the
Yeah.
deck? And I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
But the tricks I do every single time, literally, I don't even think about resetting them. I
Yeah.
reset them automatically.
Yeah.
Things go smooth. So one thing I wanted to mention, because I promised you I would talk about it, is how to get this explosivity out of clients, right? Like how to approach them and be like utterly like, we shock them and get those big reactions. A lot of this is mirroring, right? If people respect you and appreciate you as a person, psychology says that they tend to mirror your actions.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'll do sort of a preemptive practice run with them. So like we all know the silly gag, sponge ball here, sponge ball in their hand, open. They change places, right?
Yeah.
This is actually a great example for this. So you open your hand and you're like, they changed places. What? And you're like, woo, high five. You like start high fiving people, and they'll play along. It's funny, and then you're like, oh, okay, I get it. That was sarcastic. Let's try it for real. So squeeze this one here, and then you open your hand, you're no sponge ball, and then you just say, wait, I freaked out when they changed places, but now they literally teleported from here to there. There's no way. And I literally doubt myself. I'm like, there's just no way. And then literally people go, no, there's not. And I build that energy. I'm like, no, Sally, open your hand. Sally, and then she opens her hand, and then it's awkward now. If I'm like, Sally, open your hand. And they go, wow, that's weird. It's like working against the grain. It's actually hard for them to do that. So if I say, Sally, open your hand, and she opens her hand, and boom, sponge balls come out, then they're like, whoa. And you can even ask people to pull their phones out. You're like, guys, you're gonna want to record this. Take your phones out, record this. And now on video, they don't want to look stupid in front of their friends. If they are taking the time to record something and they open and they go, wow, that makes for a crappy video.
Yeah.
So they got their phones out, they're recording, and like, oh my gosh, they open, and now on video they go, whoa, because they want to look like their life's interesting. It's a huge tip on how to get, and then that sets the precedent for the other groups. If they hear one group laughing and cheering and clapping, now the other groups know, hey, okay, that's the appropriate response to this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think it's something I saw recently, I've seen you do it once or twice, is instead of you eliciting to the response, saying like, hey, in a moment when you open your hands, all the applause that you're going to receive is going to be for you. And so now you're prompting everyone else in the group to applause for Sally, and then she knows, like, okay, this is all for me, and need to be involved.
Something I do
with it.
sometimes too, like when I'm doing the effect double cross, you might not know what that is, but I'll tell people, I'm like, if that is inside of her hand, we are going to freak out. And he usually goes, yeah, we're going to freak out.
Yeah.
And then you're like, all right, I'm nervous.
Yeah.
Check it out. And they open their hand, and now me and Jim, we look at each other, and we're like, and we freak out together.
Yeah.
It's cool, because it's like, oh, hey, man, I'm equally surprised. I'm not, but I act like it. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun for them. So there's a lot more tips as far as that goes. We'll get into a little bit more of that later. But one thing, don't be afraid to also ask for it. If it wasn't a lively group, don't be afraid to just be like, hey guys, do me a favor real quick. Just like all the other groups, like are super interested in what we're doing. They think you're cool. I'm gonna be like, did you guys have a good time? And we're gonna be like, woo, and cheer.
Yeah.
And I literally do that. Like, did you guys have a good time? And they go, woo, and they clap for you. And now your client who hired you hears that. The other groups hear it, and then you just like literally look at them. And you're like, thanks guys, that was awesome. Like I'm surprised you did it so well. Compliment them, and then leave on a compliment. I tend to always leave on a compliment. I tend to always leave the door open. So when I'm leaving, I usually will look at the group and be like, guys, you were so awesome. Let's give all the volunteers a round of applause. They clap. And hey, listen, I'm going to be around. If you want to see some more, feel free to ask me. And looking at the size of this group, I'll probably be seeing you guys again. So, hey, don't make it awkward for me when I come back up. I'll do a couple quick ones. And they're like, yeah, cool.
Yeah. You also, on that same note, you also sometimes say to certain people, hey, listen, I've got something special just for you. Don't let me forget to show it to you.
Yeah.
So then, even if they never remember, but it is an in for you later to say, hey, listen, remember I told you I was going to show you something special, so let's go ahead
And
and
they
do
go,
that now.
you always see it. They always go, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now they're
yeah.
interested because it's about them, right?
Yeah.
And even the tricks you do. Another tip of just performing walk around in general: make it not about you, but about them. Don't go up to tables and do a manip act because they don't care about that.
Right.
Like if you can literally say like, that's why I lead on a question like, who's the most protective person? Like you are. Like, all right, we're gonna put this to the test. Like now it's on them. Like their performance is theirs, not mine, right? I try to do that with every single one of my routines. And walk around magic's a beautiful thing because it happens in their own hands. If you're using their hands, why not use their personality too?
Yeah.
So
let's recap on all the tips, right? So when you get to the event.
Yeah, so you get to the event, look for the big group that will later disperse and find the charismatic people.
And try to remember, this is something we didn't talk a whole lot about, but reading, Harry Lorraine has a great book on memory. It talks about all kinds of different techniques on how to remember things more. That's something that I highly recommend. I know Chris does as well. Names is the biggest thing that you can do out of that. Remembering someone's name is huge. And it doesn't just benefit you in the performing space, it benefits you everywhere. So that's the first part of that first tip. Try to remember as many names as possible.
Yeah, find the charismatic people, the big group, start with them, and learn as many people's names as possible. That will really help you later on in the event. I promise you. It sounds like it won't. It will.
It will.
The other thing is try to make sure that so it's kind of like a progressive anagram, like it's an anagram, a tree chart. If you feel good vibes from them, like you can approach and interrupt and do your trick right then, do that. If you feel like you hesitated or the energy's not right in that group, walk up, pay somebody a compliment who's paying attention to you, like, hey man, nice shoes, keep walking, whatever you want to compliment them, make it a genuine compliment, something you really enjoy. And then also that's something maybe you can bring up and talk to them about later too, where they got those shoes, whatever. So pass a compliment or approach the group. Ask a question about themselves. So question, compliment, and then it's usually like an observation. I'm sorry, compliment, question, observation, then you can get into it. But don't rush to get to the magic trick. No one's waiting for you to pull out your deck of cards. And if they are, explode that expectation. You know what magicians do is approach groups and pull out a deck of cards. You're not a normal magician. You're you. So don't do that right away.
Also, that's one of the benefits of showing up early to an event is so that you can go ahead and get it set up and then make your first initial round throughout the crowd, just introducing yourself, throwing out the compliments, saying, hey, listen, we're going to get started here in about 20 minutes. I'm going to be back around. Don't even forget to show you something incredible. And you get names then too. So that way, when the event actually starts, now you're already set up to go.
So that's two separate options, not the same tip. So it's either pass a compliment, keep going so you can come back later, or go to the group, introduce yourself, say, hey, I'll come back later. Those are two separate paths you can take. I do them both at different events for different groups. Just feels right, one or the other. Then make the tricks about them. So get there, ask a question, put the performance on them, get to know them as a person, amp up the energy, take your applause, take the screaming, take the laughing, take those videos that they posted, which is good marketing for you. Tell them to tag you in it so you can post it on their story or on your story. Then all the other groups are ready for a good time. Use those tips everywhere, and don't be afraid to just take a stroll. If you have a low energy crowd or it didn't go over the first time, take another stroll. Introduce yourself to a group you haven't talked to before, and say, "Hey guys, I'm gonna show you something in a second. Go get yourself a water, and then walk back over."
Yeah. Also, I think too, for me, the moment you hesitate to go to a group is the moment that you don't go to that group. So, because to me, I always felt like I need to perform magic like right when I get to the group. Which is you've shown me that is not the best case.
No, man, that's the worst case.
It's much easier. Like, I'm actually more comfortable taking a walking around gig now, knowing that, hey, listen, I can just kind of walk around and throw out compliments. For me as a super introvert is, hey, I'm very much more comfortable just kind of throwing out compliments. So you have to figure out. It's a good thing to know. Figure out what works best for you. What works best for me is kind of make that initial approach of just kind of introducing myself, and now I don't feel so awkward stepping into a group that doesn't know who I am.
And just like you practice your magic, practice these tips, complimenting people and starting conversations with random people in public. You don't have to be long conversations, but see if you can get a few seconds out of them. The more that you can win over people in your everyday life, the easier it is for you to do these tips and walk around. Just takes practice, and I've been doing it for so long now, it's so natural to me, I don't even think about it. So talking about it's actually kind of a weird thing now.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, I really think that this was a good one.
Yeah. Fantastic. Later.